Time to do a little bit of archaeology and a little bit of history learning. Traverse des Sioux. I'm here at the historical place where the Sioux signed a treaty that they shouldn't have signed, that they didn't even know what they were signing. Alexander Ramsey was a schmuck of a governor that tried to basically wool fleece the whole nation. So I'm going to read this and you guys can feel the vehemence and the anger and the frustration that I have because I love Native Americans and specifically the Dakota. So, this ancient fording place, Traverse des Sioux, is what the French called it. Traverse des means the traveling place of the Sioux. The Mississippi, actually the Minnesota River is just out that way. This whole site actually probably has very great historical value because of all the different Native American artifacts that you could find out here. Not just Native American, but pioneer artifacts. Arrowheads, different metates, different things like that. This ancient fording place, the crossing of the Sioux, was on the heavily traveled trail from St. Paul and Fort Snelling to the upper Minnesota and Red River valleys. Here, on June 30th, 1851, Governor Alexander Ramsey, Commissioner of Indian Affairs, Luke Lea, leader, delegate to the Congress, Henry H. Sibley, and other government officials established a camp on a height overlooking the small trading post and mission on the riverbank. They had gathered to negotiate an important treaty with representatives of the Sisseton and the Wapiton Sioux, Dakota. Dakota means ally as well, the allies, not the little snake. So that was what the French called them. That's what white people called the Sioux, the Dakota, forgive me. But Dakota in their own language means the allies. For almost 24 million acres called the Siouxland. This vast treaty compromised most of Minnesota west of the Mississippi and south of the line between present-day St. Cloud and Moorhead, as well as portions of South Dakota and northern Iowa. News of the signing of the Treaty of the Traverse des Sioux on July 23rd, zoom in on that, on July 23rd, 1851, started a great land rush which brought swarms of settlers to the fertile lands acquired by the United States from the Sioux, erected by the Minnesota Historical Society of 1968. 1851 was a hard winter for the Dakota, and they signed the treaty because they had debts to be paid to the fur traders, the French, and other fur traders. Not all of them signed with even knowledge or what they were doing. They thought that they were going to be paid handsomely, so to speak, for the land that they were signing away. They didn't even really know what ownership of land meant, what that entailed. And so this treaty to me is basically null and void. It's like the Pocahontas theme, you know what I mean? And like there was a Dakota man that actually worked on that movie in the 1990s. You think you own whatever land you land on. The earth is just a dead thing you can claim. Now, that to me is very, very sad to think about the way that white people see people and see land. But yes, farmers did move in here. Farmers did make this land very fertile, and it feeds now thousands, if not millions and billions of people around the world. But I think that the Dakota have not been equally recompensed for their wrongs. As you will potentially further know if we go further west, in 1864, the Dakota rose up and fought against the pioneered settlers of New Ulm. They were Germans, just like me, who were settling in a free land that they didn't really know the history of. And eventually the Germans and the Dakota fought wars because of proximity. The newly traveled Germans get placed right by these angry Native Americans, and there was a bloody war. So history is violent. Ideals and treaties can be quote-unquote peaceful, but history is violent, and people know when things are wrong and things need to be changed. So those are my brief thoughts on the Traverse des Sioux treaty and the signing of it. I don't like the treaty. I don't think the treaty was just. I don't think it was done according to the rules, according to the law. And then, 15, 20 years later, you get white racist settlers saying about the Dakota, well, if they're hungry, let them eat grass. Or even the governor himself saying that. I don't know who said it, what quote where it came from, but that's a terrible quote, that, if they're hungry, let them eat grass. That's terrible. But yes, apparently right across the highway, near a rock, the treaty was signed. It wasn't on exact ground here, so if you ever come out to this post and read, this was a village. This was actually St. Peter before St. Peter was St. Peter. There was a mixing of white people and Dakota people. They lived in a village, I think a mixed village, basically. But obviously, the Dakota had their own living spaces, and white people had their own living spaces as well. Some people had blended families. Some fur traders married Native women, and it was just a thing. The Dakota were a very good people. They were good to you if you were good to them, but they didn't know who Alexander Ramsey was and what he was basically going to do. Thanks for listening. I know this is more of a talking video, but you need to talk through stuff. You know me with the Viking lands. The Vikings were explorers, but they made peace where they could make peace, because you can't make war continually and expect to survive with only 24 or 25 guys. You can fend off a whole tribe, but eventually the tribe will outlast you and run you to exhaustion and kill you. So, there may have been times in more ancient times where not necessarily treaties, but peace was made between Vikings and natives, but there was no official settlement. You don't find evidences in Minnesota other than the rune stone of actual settlement here. So it's very interesting that the Dakota had some semblance of peace with the French fur traders, buying and selling furs to keep their children warm, to keep their people warm. It's a good thing, but debt is not a good thing, and especially using people's debts to basically buy 2 million acres worth of land. How much do you think that's a price at, all you real estate agents out there? How much do you think you owe the Dakota? Seriously, all you people that live up on these lands, and then you force people like me that are poor to, pay you rent. You know what I'm saying? So, hope you guys have a good day, and remember to thank a Dakota person if you live in Minnesota, and probably repay them, accordingly, with at least your Thanksgiving, with at least your kindness. So yeah, 24 million acres given to the United States government and then sold off to the United States common man. So there's the video. This is the actual location of the signing of the Dakota. Basically, the government stealing from the natives. Hope you have a good day. God bless you. Creator bless you. And seek justice and love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. Amen.